السلام عليكم ورحمة الله خوتي، جيسبر راكم بيان. عدنا إليكم بلايف على قناة اليوتيوب والفيسبوك. اللايف تاع اليوم كالعادة يعني لايف خاص مع الصحفي الإنجليزي هاري سيميو، اللي هو صحفي اللي عمل من قبل على قناة البي بي سي، وعمل في كذلك قناة توك سبورت. عنده القناة ديالو هو شخصيا، عنده يعني The Chronicles of a Goona، قناة معروفة جدا على اليوتيوب. عنده قناة كذلك اسمها 90 من. يعمل كذلك عنده قناة أخرى مختصة بالكرة القدم الإيطالية. بدون إطالة نرحبوا بهاري. هاري, good evening mate.
Good evening, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks for accepting the invitation. I know it's a busiest period. I know you got a lot to do. So we just gotta go ahead. I know we've got only 1 hour, so we just try to be as quick as possible. Just a little introduction about yourself. How did everything started with your work as a journalist, and your story?
It started off with me working in a bank, actually. I was a banker for nearly 10 years. Always loved football. Arsenal in particular was always my first love. My wife doesn't like it when I say that, but it's true. Arsenal was my first love. I started writing some blogs, recording some podcasts, and eventually just got to the point where I had enough work to make the decision to jump across and make it my career. So I'm one of the very lucky people, because there's lots of people that love Arsenal. I'm very lucky that I get it for it to be part of my working life now. So it's great.
Yeah. كما شفتوا هاري عطى لكم مقدمه صغيره عليه. هو يعني كان يخدم في البنك، يعني فاني ناف كان يخدم في البنكه. الاشاره برك هاري كذلك هو مشجع وفي للارسنال. You're a ticket season holder as well, yeah?
Yeah. I was a season ticket holder long before I was working in the game. So I was one of those people that used to go there and get angry every weekend and then go home and try and forget about it.
هو تيكت سيزون هولدر، يعني يروح لكل مقابله، وبعد دخل في ميدان الصحافه وبدات الحكايه ديالو مع يعني يكتب فلوجز كما يقولوا، يدير بلوجز ديالو، وهذه هي. Harry, just wanted to know, talking about the Arsenal, how did you get in love with Arsenal?
I didn't have a choice. My dad is a massive Arsenal fan. He grew up, he grew up down the road from Arsenal. He was a big Arsenal fan, and I kind of just got brainwashed from a very young age. There was no choice for me, but I'm glad there wasn't, because I wouldn't change anything.
هو كما شفتوا قال لكم الحكايه ديالو مع تشجيع ارسنال بدات على باباه، يعني هو اللي كان مريض على الارسنال، ويعني دخل الحب تاع النادي في قلبه. We're going to talk a little bit of obviously the Arteta's appointment. What's your take on do you think do you think it was for financial reasons, because it was the cheapest option, I would say, or is it really based on a project that Arteta can take the club to the next level and win trophies?
I'd like to think it was about the project. A lot of people make that point about it being financial, but ultimately Arsenal have spent money on players, haven't they? So I don't think it would be solely financial. I think that they tried to go a little bit more short term with Unai Emery. They only gave Unai Emery a 2-year contract, interestingly. And then that didn't work out. So I think they probably looked at it and thought, this is a team that needs a major turnaround, major surgery, if you like. And the best way to do that would be by appointing somebody for the long term. It was a risk, of course, because he's got very little experience, and you're asking him to take charge of one of the biggest football clubs in the world. And you can see from all the different supporters clubs in different countries that just how big Arsenal is. So to take control of this club and to put it in the hands of somebody like Mikel Arteta was a risk, but I think it was very much with the view for the long term rather than the short term.
سقسيتو يعني على المجيء ارتيتا وكيفاش يعني النادي اسكو كان على بسبب يعني لسبب مالي، ولا فعلا كان يعني على جال البروجيكت، يعني بسبب المشروع. قال كان الكلاب خدا ريسك شويه، ولكن هو حب، يعني الكلاب حابين يشوفوا يعني فيزيون بعيده كما نقولوا، وحبوا يشوفوا المشروع على المستقبل، يعني شافوا البعيد وحبوا صح يبنوا فريق. هذه هي يعني باختصار. How do you rate the summer transfer window, the Arsenal summer transfer window, Harry?
It was a mixed bag. It was a mixed one, the summer transfer window, because I think we did some good deals. I really like the signing of Gabriel. I really like the signing of Thomas Partey. I still felt like we needed more. But of course, you've also got to consider that we tied Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang down to a new contract as well. So that's 3 major bits of business that Arsenal did in the summer. I think we all acknowledge we need more, but I think Arsenal were hoping that they would be able to move out a lot of their players. And of course, because of the COVID-19 virus and everything that's happened in the world, it was a lot more difficult to do that. And so I think we'd have liked to have done more, but we got a little bit stuck, and we're still stuck, aren't we, with some of these players? We can't move them on. And once they go, that opens the door to more recruits. But I think we have to be patient. You're not going to change the whole squad in one transfer window, not even 2, maybe not even 3. Sometimes it needs 4 or 5 windows to get to the team that you want to get to.
سقسيتو على الترانسفير ويندو، يعني في الصيف اللي جا ولا الاستخدامات، قال لك يعني كما قلت انا مره في بعض اللايفات، يعني داروا نص نص، يعني مليحه وماشي مليحه. كانوا حابين، طبعا النادي كان يحب يتخلص من بعض اللاعبين، ولكن مع الكوفيد ومع وشفنا كاع وصعيبه كان الكونترا تاعهم، يعني صعيب باش يغادروا هاد اللاعبين. ولكن قدوم غابرييل وكذلك اسمه ما نساوش اوباميانغ تجدد العقد، وكذلك اسمه توماس بارتي، يعني ما نقولوش راطاو الاخر، كانوا قادرين يديروا اكثر ولا كانوا حابين اكثر، ولكن للاسف هذا واش جابوا. ودرك كيما نقول الاولويه لازم يخرجوا بعض اللاعبين، ضروري يخرجوا بعض اللاعبين باش يسرحوا كيما قلنا شحال من خطره سكواد. I want to talk a little bit of Edu, Harry.
Yep.
What do you make of it as Edu as a technical director? A lot of things happens, of course. The last maybe 3 seasons, obviously with Raul Sanley pretty much kicked out of the club. Do you think Edu is the right person, or do you think, because what we've seen so far, these sports director or whatever you call technical directors, they have their connections with the agents, but are they because sometimes from a point of view, I think they thinking more about their pockets than the club or the interest of the club. What do you think?
It certainly feels that way. It certainly feels like they are.
It's fair enough. It's a business. I'm not saying, of course, they have to make money. But sometimes when you see, for example, the Pepe's transfer, do you think kind of we've been ripped off? Because I don't really think, is he really worth 80 million or 75 million?
I think we did get ripped off with Nicolas Pepe, and I think that's largely why Raul Sanley is no longer at Arsenal Football Club. Arsenal sent the Kroenkes sent in Lewis, who's obviously a lawyer, and he really went through the books of the club and tried to make sense of what has been happening over the last few years. And I think that the Pepe transfer, maybe the Saliba transfer as well, and a combination of other deals is what led to him being pushed out the door, because they weren't happy with it. You know, when you're at the very top of a football club, there will be situations where you get into bed almost with agents, and you will make deals with agents. Sometimes you will make deals that you are desperate to make and they will help you. And other times you will have to do deals that the agent wants you to do, so that it's, you know, with every business relationship, it's 2 ways, isn't it? And I think that's the problem. So for all the good signings we might make, we're going to make some bad ones as well. If you go down that route of only sticking with an agent. I like to think that Edu will do a good job. You know, you've got to take into consideration he's not been here a very long time. And a lot of the players that we're talking about moving, that we don't like, that we don't necessarily want at the club anymore, they're not because Edu brought them in. And so his hands are a little bit tied. He has to bide his time, do the right deals to bring people in, but also he has to manage what we currently have as well.
سقسيت هاري على يعني على ايدو يعني كمدير فني. قلت له يعني هاد المدراء الفنيين هادو دائما معاهم مشاكل، كما شفنا راون سليه يعني كما قلنا شحال من خطره يعني حاوزوه هذه هي، لانه خاصه هضرت له على بيبي، قلت له يعني اذا صح يسوى 80 مليون، لان لما تشوف كلاو معاه بيبي كما قلت حاجه مختاره معايا، وماشي لاعب اللي يسوى 80 مليون. قال لك انا ماذا بيا نامن بلي ايدو حيدير خدمه مليحه، ولكن ماشي تخدم مع اجون واحد. الحاجه المليحه دائما تخدم مع بليزيور اجون. كذلك ملاحظه قالوا لي خاوه بلي ما كاش الانترنت راهي ضعيفه في الجزائر، على بالي ما عندناش عدد المشاركين. I was just saying Harry because I just got a notification from one of the moderators. He said
Yep.
the internet, unfortunately, the internet is down in Algeria. That's why we don't have a lot of participants. I can see that because usually we have a lot of participants, but apparently the internet is down.
No problem. They can watch it later, I suppose.
Watch it later. Yeah, exactly, exactly. um, um, Harry, the way the money has been spent the last few years, and the crankies taking over, because a lot of people tend to say, "Yeah, it's Cranky's fault. It's Cranky's. The Cranky is the biggest problem." But from my personal point of view, what I think, yes, he's part of the problem, but not all. Because when you see, Cranky has given the money, but the problem, the money has been spent wrongly. Even with Arsene Wenger, when you see players like Mustafi, a player like Xhaka, we could have spent less for better players. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the money has been spent badly, and that's been obviously a major problem at Arsenal Football Club. I think on the one hand, I want to say that the Cronkies, it's not their job to go and buy players. And they put those people in those jobs to do that for them, and they trust that those people will get it right. But ultimately, if you run a business and the business doesn't perform, you're responsible, because you need to make sure that the right people are in that job to make sure that the right people have to be in the job for you to be able to get the right players in, and then for that to breed success on the pitch. So I don't really have an issue with the Cronkies in the sense of the money that the club spends. The club does spend money. This club spends a lot of money. This club has been paying Champions League wages to Europa League players for the last 4 years. So that is one of the reasons why the money's tightened up a little bit. I think the Cronkies have spent more, or the club has spent more since they took full control, because why would they want to invest money, or why would they want to do things for a club that they didn't own fully? Now they own it fully. I think we've seen a bit of a change. But ultimately, if they don't put the right people in the right jobs, the team will never succeed. And my worry about the Cronkies is they're not football people. And so are they going to be able to identify who is right and who is wrong for the job? They've gone wrong on a number of occasions so far. Let's hope that they put that right. But, it's they're not the greatest owners in the world, but they're not the worst owners in the world as well. My big issue with them is that they don't come to the football matches. And that shows an absence for me. That shows that they don't, I'm not going to say they don't care at all, but it shows that Arsenal is not their priority. And I want someone to own this football club, because we all love it, to own this club and love this club and give it all of their attention.
Yeah. And also I was thinking, because they've been given a lot of stick, but as I said, the money was there, but it have been spent wrongly. It's crazy with all these wages. I know it's coming back at us because we can get rid of these deadwood players, because they are on ridiculous wages, and even those players, they don't want to leave. So yeah, I'm just gonna make quick translation.
No
سقسيت
problem.
هاري على سقسيتو على الكرونكيز وعلى الاداره. الناس اللي تقول كرونكي هو المشكل، وقت كل شيء مختار نفس الشيء. هو قال لك المشكل صح، الكرونكيز هما فيهم مشكل، لانه هو ما راهمش حاضرين كما يكون لازم الحال. قال لك ولكن الدراهم كانوا تمات. المشكل في الدراهم، الناس ما عرفتش كيفاش تصرف هذه الاموال. هضر عطينا المثال تاع مصطفي، عطينا المثال تاع جاكا. كنا قادرين نجيبوا لاعبين يعني افضل من جاكا ومصطفي باقل ثمن، فهمت، ولاعبين موهوبين كما نقولوا كاندي هذاك الوقت كنا قادرين نجيبوا بصراحه، وجابوا شاكا. هذه هي. قال لك يعني المشكل الدراهم ما راهمش يصرفوا فيهم مليح، ولهذا لازم يعني النادي يعاود يشوف يعني السياسه ديالو. لي كرونكي لازم يكونوا يعني هو ماذا به يكون واحد اخر يعني ياخذ النادي، ولكن كما قلنا صعيبه شويه، لانه الكرونكيز هما اللي داو كاع الاسهم تاع النادي الان. All right, we go to the interesting part, Harry. I want to talk a little bit about the January transfer window and the players we may see leaving the club. We've been hearing about Socrates. He's on the verge of leaving to Genoa, if I'm not wrong. Mustafi, I don't think it's going to happen. even though we've been hearing about Barcelona, but I don't think it's going to happen realistically. There have been talks also about Reece Nelson, Willock as an obvious a swap deal with Norwich in order to bring what's his name, Buendia.
Buendia.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk also about Balogun, but Balogun it's another story. Just leave it for later. I want to start with Socrates. Actually, I was listening to one of your podcasts. I think it was yesterday, and you made a very good point regarding Socrates. It's true, actually. Why not putting Socrates in the squad, knowing that, and Callum Chambers, who's injured, and knowing that he's not going to be fit until January. He's not even fit yet. He's not even ready yet. You make a very good point. So let's start with those players. Do you think they're going to leave, like Socrates, Mustafi Nelson, Willock?
I think if they don't leave now, I don't think Willock and Nelson will leave. I think those two will still be at the club. If one of them is going to leave, it's more likely to be Reece Nelson, I would say, because he's getting less of a look in. He's not involved. They keep saying that it's injury problems, but I feel like he's just out of favour. I think Willock will be kept around the squad. I think Willock has a part to play for Mikel Arteta. Going back to Socrates, I think that one is, if he doesn't leave now, he will at least agree a contract with somebody for the end of the season. And I think it's important for him that if he can go now, he does, because he doesn't want to spend another 6 months sitting around doing nothing. He's a very good professional, maybe not good enough for Arsenal. I'm Greek and I'll say that. So it's not anything to do with that. But it surprised me a little bit because his attitude is always very good. He's always been a model professional, very popular in the dressing room. And like you said, to know that Pablo Mari, for example, wasn't going to be fit till December, to know that Callum Chambers still isn't really 100% fit, and put those two in the squad in front of him didn't make sense to me. Maybe Chambers was in because of the homegrown rule. But with Pablo Mari, he's not homegrown, and we knew that he wasn't going to be fit. So that must have felt like a real blow to Socrates, and you can understand why he's been a little bit unhappy. But to his credit, he's not come out and he's not criticised the club. He's not criticised anybody. He's just kept quiet and got on with it.
Yeah. How about the other players? We're going to talk about Balogun a bit. سو سقسيت هاري على يعني لا ترانسفير ويندو هدايا، قلت له على ان اللاعبين اللي رايحين بالك نشوفوهم رايحين، من بينهم يعني سقراطيس هو تقريبا شبه رسمي راه رايح لفريق جنوا بايطاليا. ولكن حكينا واحد المشكل صح. سقراطيس يعني علاش ما داروش في الفريق؟ سقسيتو هنايا قلت له وداروه كانوا مشامبر اللي كان بليسي، علما بان تشامبرز بليسير ديالو على بالهم بلي ما كانش حيوجد حتى لجونفي ومازال ما رجعش. يعني كنا قاعدين في ذاك الوقت ندخلوا سقراطيس في سكواد ليست ويلعبوا به، حتى من بعد كيحبوا يدخلوا تشامبرز في جانوري، لان سقراطيس قاعد هكذاك ما دخلوش في الليست. يعني نقصنا لاعب، يعني تشامبرز حيطينوا في الليست بصح بليسي قاعد في الدار. هذا هو المشكل من بعض الاحيان اللي ما نفهمش انا. هضرنا على نيلسون، سقسيتو على نيلسون وبيلو، قال لنا ما نظنش حيغادروا. I'm gonna go to Mesut Ozil first, the transfer Mesut, because I am myself confused, completely confused. I was reading the news yesterday. Can you explain to me, because they say he's on the verge of leaving for Besiktas for 3.5 year contract or deal. So as far as I understand, who's paying for the 6 months?
So the way it's been reported to me is Fenerbahce that he's closing in on joining. So Fenerbahce are interested in taking Mesut Ozil on a 3.5 year contract. Now, my understanding is that deal is in place for Mesut Ozil to join Fenerbahce at the end of the season, because he will become a free agent at that point. Of course, when you are running your contract down, when you get to the last 6 months, you are able to negotiate with other clubs. Now, that's the deal that's in place. But we are hearing that Fenerbahce, Arsenal and Mesut Ozil are trying to find a way and an agreement in which Mesut Ozil would go there now. So 6 months early. Arsenal are willing to pay a percentage of his wages for him to go to Fenerbahce early, because they can't afford to pay him what Arsenal are paying him. So if Arsenal make up a percentage of that, Arsenal will save a load of money, won't they? Because if they can save, for example, half of his wages between now and the end of the season, they will do that. Let Fenerbahce pay the rest, and he can go there now. He gets out of the club, and there's no more of this speculation about Mesut Ozil. I think it's best if he goes now. I really like him as a player. I think he's a top footballer, but obviously too much has happened. The relationship is broken, and I think it's best for everybody if Mesut just, if the club agree it, Fenerbahce agree, and Mesut, if they all come to the table and try and find an agreement that means it can be done now, I think it's better for everybody.
Yeah. So as far as I understand, so they're trying to find a solution to. So the club, I mean, Arsenal will pay some of his wage. That's what I understand, right? They're
Yeah,
not planning.
that's what we're being
Yeah.
told. We don't know how much. We don't
Yeah.
know what percentage it will be. We don't know if Arsenal are even going to agree to that in the end. But that's what's going on. That's what they're trying to do in terms of a deal. They're trying to agree something that works for all parties. That means Arsenal save some money, Fenerbahce get their player early, and Mesut Ozil gets released from this hell that he's in at the moment, where he's not playing football.
يا سقسيت هاري على اوزيل، على قضيه اوزيل هذه على الكونترا، لانه صراحه تلفت لي البارح ما كنتش فاهم على 3 سنين و6 شهور هادو، ولا 3 سنين ونص. قال لك هو على حسب المعلومات اللي عنده، على لانه هو عنده بزاف لي كونتاكت، قالوا له باللي مازال ما لقاوش حل، لانه لازم ارسنال يخلصوا شويه من هذاك شحال. قال لك ما على باليش شحال، ولكن هذه هي الاوبشن. ارسنال تخلص، لازم يخلصوا له الوجه ديالو، لانه بالطبع فينرباتشي ماشي حيل يخلصوا له، ما باليش على يدي 300,000 باوند في الاسبوع. نادي التركي ما يقدرش يخلصها. دونك هذه، ولكن الايام القليله ان شاء الله راح تقول لنا واش حيكون في قضيه مسعود اوزيل. وقال لك هي الافضل يروح دركا، يعني باش هكذا هو يتهنى والفريق النادي يتهنى وكاع الناس تهنى. Somebody is asking in Arabic. He told me, Salim asking about the Saliba. Actually, I forgot about this Saliba case. What has happened? What's going on with Saliba? I mean, now he's gone now for long.
So the club brought Saliba in. They bought him from Saint Etienne for around about 25 to 27 million pounds. It was a lot of money. And when I spoke,
is it Raul signing? I just want.
yes, this was it. Yeah. And when I was saying earlier on about them looking at a number of transfers Raul was involved in, this was another one. So there was a lot of concern about that. What basically happened is that William Saliba unfortunately lost his mother during last season. He took some time off. At the time, it was reported as he was injured, but actually that's what happened. He lost his mother. At the end of the day, he's just an 18-year-old kid. Yeah. And to lose your mother must be very, very difficult at any age. So to lose your mother at 18 years old and then a few months later have to go off to another country in which you don't speak the language you've never been to before must be difficult. When he arrived, Mikel Arteta and his coaching staff assessed him and decided that actually he's not quite where he needs to be to play for Arsenal just yet. And they acknowledged that it's because he lost his mother, because of all the off the field problems. So they're not upset about it. They weren't disappointed about it. They just felt that William Saliba needed to go and play regular football. And you've got to consider as well, Arsenal this season, at the start of this season, had 8-9 centre-backs at the club. So, it's not a position in which we were short. So they tried to loan him out at the end of the summer window. If you remember, he was offered to Saint Etienne, but the paperwork wasn't completed. The deal wasn't done, and William Saliba got stuck. As soon as this window has opened, he's gone to Nice. So it was always the intention after the summer to loan him out. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get it done in time. So hopefully he goes and plays some football, improves, puts his problems behind him, and he can come back and play a part for Arsenal.
But do you really think, I mean, he was, put aside because of a footballing reason? Because when I see, I don't have any agenda against any player at Arsenal, because I support the club, and when something is not right, I would just say it. When I see Mustafi playing, I had Kevin Campbell the other day, and we were talking about Saliba, and I told him the thing I don't understand with Saliba, right, is just we know Mustafi, right? We know which kind of player he is. We've been watching Mustafi for the last, I think, 4 or 5 years. He's the same player who's making mistakes week in, week out. I'm just tired and sick of it. I would rather see Saliba playing and making mistakes and learning instead of watching Mustafi. Even worse, a Europa League game, we've been watching Mustafi with the armband. this player is not even committed to the club. He's leaving by the summer. I don't know, but some people are saying he's been offered a contract and he turned it down. I don't know if that's true or not. But when you talk about trusting the process and building, why still playing Mustafi? That's the thing I don't get.
I agree with you. The only thing I would say is, as fans, we would have been willing to see Saliba, play some football as a substitute, whatever. But if you're Mikel Arteta, your job is to get results. And for him to not think that William Saliba is even good enough to play ahead of some of those others tells you that, in his view, William Saliba just was nowhere near ready. And I think, none of us have watched a lot of William Saliba to sit here. I haven't anyway. I don't watch much French football. I can't sit and say, yes, he's ready or yes, he's not ready.
So I think he had a decent game, by the way.
Yeah, he was okay yesterday. I saw bits of it, but I think you just, in these situations, I think sometimes you just have to trust the coach that watches him every single day in training, instead of kind of maybe jumping to conclusions. Mustafi isn't good enough, but even still, had Saliba stayed around and filled the position of Shkodran Mustafi, how many games would he have played this season? 5, 6? Is that enough for him to develop? Probably not. So that's probably why Mikel and the coaching staff have decided that actually, for him to get to where he needs to be, he's got to play week in, week out. And when he was at Saint Etienne, the whole idea was that he was going to play week in, week out. But obviously, they had a development plan for him. He didn't get to play as many games as they'd have hoped because of everything else that went on behind the scenes. And so it just felt like he was still a little bit short. I'm not upset that they loaned William Saliba out. I know a lot of Arsenal fans are, but I'm very much of the opinion that we spent a lot of money on this player, so we have to look after him properly, and we have to make sure that at some point we get a return on our investment. If that means him going and playing football elsewhere first, then so be it for me.
سقسيت هاري على باسكو واحد خونا سقساني قال لي سقسي على قضيه صليبه عادي قريده سقساني قلت له كيفاش قضيه صليبه قلت له نفس الشيء كيما هضرت مع كيفن كامبل قلت له يعني كيفاش مصطفى يلعب صليبه ما يلعبش هو نفس الشيء هاري قال لي يعني قال لي حاجه مليحه كي بعثوه لون هضر على قضيه انه فقد الوالده ديالو جاتو صعيبه حتى تاقلم في انجلترا ما كانش ساهل ليه لغه جديده كل شيء جديد وكذلك يعني قال لك الكلمه الاخيره ترجع المدرب هو اللي راه ينطريني معاهم انا قلت له حبيت نشوف اذا كان صليبه لعبوا معليش ما يغلط يدير غلطات بصح يتعلم خير ما نشوف مصطفى انا نشوفه فيه 5 سنين والديقات لي مام وتوجو الزبايل كيما نقولوا حنا اللي يديرهم مي بو هذه هي كيما قال لك هاري عنده الحق فهادي ما نقدروش نغلبوه المدرب هو لو معاهم كل يوم وعلى باله واش كاين واش راهو يشوف. Alright Harry, just want to talk a bit about the Balogun potential transfer because there have been a lot of talks about Balogun. I think I've read something today that Balogun, according to David Ornstein, that Balogun is close to signing for a foreign club. I don't know if that's true. That hurts a little bit. What do you think? Because Balogun, we've been watching a couple of games. He's a decent player. I would rather have Balogun than Eddie Nketiah because I'm sorry, I like Eddie. But I think, again, from my personal point of view, he's just not good enough. Eddie is not good enough. And the proof is there because he's been playing or he's been in loan for Leeds last year, which was a championship side, and he didn't make it. He was benched. So what do you think about the Balogun thing?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, this one. I prefer Balogun to Eddie Nketiah as well. I think Balogun will go on to have a better career. I just think he's a more all-round striker. The problem is that it's the contract situation, isn't it? The contract is expiring at the end of the season. From what we understand, there are a number of clubs interested in Balogun. And I think the big issue here is not money. I think the big issue here is, will he be guaranteed that he's going to play enough games at Arsenal? And I think him and his agent are very worried about that. And that's why they're considering moves elsewhere. As much as I like the player, and I think that he will go on to have a very, very good career. Somebody said this to me earlier, and it was very true. He could either go on to be the next Thierry Henry, or he could be the next Chuba Akpom. You don't know. We haven't seen enough of following Balogun to really know whether he is the real deal or not. if it's true that we're hearing that they're demanding £100,000 a week, then that is absolute nonsense. And I would show him the door myself, because this is a kid who's played no more than an hour of first team football for Arsenal. And he has to earn that right. He has to earn that right to earn big money. He has to earn that right to be a regular in the team. Has he done that yet? I think the argument probably says no. I don't want to lose him because I think he's a talent. But if we can't meet, if the wage demands are crazy and we can't guarantee him the football, then it's just not meant to be. And you know, he's going to have to move on. But it seems like there are a lot of clubs interested in Balogun, and this is a problem because normally when you're talking about young kids, you don't get that much interest, and you don't have to fight off so many other clubs. You know, people are on the lookout for free transfers this summer because of the pandemic, and Balogun is someone that will be available on a free transfer, so you can understand why this one's getting a little bit messy.
سقيت على بالوغن بانه اليوم كانوا بزاف يهضروا عليه، قال لك راه واخا رايح من النادي وعنده يعني ديفيد اونستين تاع بي بي سي وتاع اتلتيك، قال بلي اونستين رايح للنادي غير انجليزي، يعني نادي اجنبي ما على بالناش وين وجهه، على حساب هاري قال لك باللي على الايجنت تاعو يقول لازم يعطوا له 100,000 باوند الاسبوع، يعني قال لك شويه ريسك لانه مازال ما بينش، يعني قادر يكون كما قال لك هاري، قادر يكون تيريونري، يعني قادر يكون ثاني كيما تشوفها اكبر، يعني شغل الكلاب راح يقمر عليه. قال لك 100,000 يعني ماشي رياليستيك هذه، ويعني هذه نشوفوا الايام اللي حتكون الايام القادمه اللي هي اللي حتكون مش كاين. I want to talk a little bit about the January transfer window, the potential incoming to the club. We've been hearing a lot about Emiliano Buendia. We've been hearing about Julian Brandt from Dortmund. At one point, where we heard about Christian Eriksen going back to England. I've heard also about Bissouma from Brighton. I would love to see Bissouma. It would be a great partnership with Partey. Do you think are these like realistic incoming? These players are realistically, you know, potentially coming to join Arsenal during this transfer window. Let's start with Buendia.
With Buendia, my understanding is that Arsenal are going to leave their interest in Buendia. They're not going to pursue that one. Norwich have made it very clear that they don't want to sell him, which suggests that it's going to take a massive fee to persuade them that they need to let him go. At the end of the day, Norwich are closing, you know, they're chasing promotion from the Championship. They're at the top of the league right now, if I'm not mistaken. And why would they let Buendia go at the risk of not getting promoted? To get what, 25, 30 million pounds, they could earn 100 and 150 million by getting promoted. So that will be their priority. If Buendia was available for 15, 20 million pounds, I'd say go for it. But if he's not, then I wouldn't pay more than that right now. He's a guy that has only really performed in the Championship, had one season in the Premier League where he did okay, but it was just one season. And that worries me a little bit. I don't think Arsenal will continue their interest in Buendia because Norwich have made their stance clear and because it's going to cost too much money simply.
Yeah. How about I'm going to talk about the potential one because there's a lot of talk. Julian Brandt, they say that he's close to joining the club. I don't know if that's true or not, but we've been hearing from a lot of sources that Julian Brandt from Dortmund is potentially leaving Dortmund for Arsenal. Do you have any?
There's been no movement on the Julian Brandt thing yet. That doesn't mean nothing's going to happen though. Initially, the reports were of Arsenal purchasing Julian Brandt. He only joined Borussia Dortmund in January 2019, so he's not been there a great deal of time. Some contradictory reports came out today which suggest that actually Dortmund would allow Brandt to go out on loan if somebody was willing to pay his wages. That could be an option for Arsenal as a bit of a short-term fix. 6-month loan deal, creative player, somebody that can provide some support to Emile Smith-Rowe in that kind of area of the pitch, particularly if Ozil's going and isn't going to play again as well. So that one could be on the cards. But as of this moment in time, as far as I understand, there's been no movement with that. Just sort of informal talks behind the scenes, but nothing more.
And how about Christian Eriksen?
No interest in him. From what I understand, Arsenal have zero interest in Christian Eriksen. He's not a player that fits their profile. He's got Tottenham Hotspur ties as well, which makes it even more. It makes him even more untouchable. I don't
Yeah.
really want to see that type of player come. To be honest, somebody who's over the hill a little bit and towards the back end of his career. I don't think that Eriksen is on the cards, and from what I've been told, the club are not even considering moving for Eriksen.
Yeah. I've been hearing yesterday, actually, or 2 days ago, there have been talks about Julian Draxler back again.
Here we go again. Every year for the last 10 years, it's been Julian Draxler to Arsenal.
It's funny. It's funny. Well, I don't think it's realistic, is it?
Say that again, sorry?
I don't think it's realistic. The talks about
No,
Julian. I don't think
no.
it's,
I think that's just one of those rumors that has been recycled for years and years and years. It's not going to happen for me, and nor do I want it to happen, to be honest with you.
and the last one, Bissouma. What do you think? It could be a great signing, but do you know if there has been talks about Bissouma at all within the club?
As far as I'm aware, there have been no talks with regards to Bissouma. He's a very good player, but for me, the worry is he's a little bit similar. He's a little bit too similar to Thomas Partey. And do you want two of those, or do you need one that's slightly different with a little bit more ability on the ball in terms of his passing, maybe, and his ability to progress the ball? I like Bissouma. I think he's a destroyer in the midfield. Very physical, works very, very hard. As far as I'm aware, that's not something that Arsenal are pursuing at the moment. But, you know, if Brighton got relegated or if Brighton continued to struggle towards the bottom end of the table, you know, you never know. A good offer in the summer could tempt him away. But I think there are a few Premier League clubs keeping their eyes on Bissouma. So we might have some competition on that one if we do try and make it happen.
سو سقسيت هاري على بعض الاسماء اللي ارتبطت بها بالاخر، يعني النادي بالانتقالات. يعني كان فيه كلام على بونديا قال لك يعني الارسنال صح كانوا مهتمين به، ولكن في الاخر المطاف نورويتش لحقوا ويندوم ومداو 40 مليون. فهمت كيفاش؟ وقال لك هما اصلا ما مش قابلين، ما مش واجدين باش يطلقوا، لانه علاش اذا طلعوا البريمير ليغ راح يتقاضوا تقريبا 320 مليون باوند. علاش يبيعوا هما؟ ماذا بهم يضمنوا الطلعه كما نقولوا. بيسوما ما كاش هضر عليه، قال لك جوليان برونت مازال ما تحرك والو على حسب يعني السورس ديالو. إريكسن قال لك جامي كانوا مانتريسين به. وسقسيتو على دراكسلر، ضحكنا لأن دراكسلر كل عام يحكيو عليه، يقول لك راه جا 10 سنين وما يحكيو على دراكسلر، ما جا ما والو. ولكن هذه إشاعات فقط، وتكثر الإشاعات خلال يعني الفترة الشتوية هذه الانتقالات. Harry, I want to talk a little bit about the goalkeeper position. Isn't it a worry when we watched what was it, the last game? Was it the Europa League? Was his name Ronaldson? I mean, aren't you worried? Because don't you think we should get seriously thinking about signing a goalkeeper, a decent goalkeeper? Because what we've seen from Ronaldson, it's worrying. If the unthinkable happened to Leno, we are in big troubles.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a big worry, and I think that it's a position that we really need to address right now. You know, the concern here is that, you know, Arsenal, well, who are you going to go out there and get for cheap? You know, at the end of the day, in Arsenal's view at the time, they sold Martinez for a fee, and they thought that bringing Runarsson in for much less would allow them to spend a bit of extra money, but also fill that position. It's clear that Runarsson isn't up to it. But I think Mikel Arteta sees it a little bit differently. You know, Arsene Wenger used to have two goalkeepers, one for the Cup, one for the Premier League. You know, Unai Emery used to do that to a degree as well. I think in Mikel Arteta's eyes, he just wants a number one that he's going to play every time he's available. And so maybe in Mikel Arteta's eyes, this isn't as urgent as we see it as fans. Because he has played Leno, hasn't he, in some of the Europa games, the key matches. He has played him in the Carabao Cup games, for example. So maybe in Mikel Arteta's eyes, he doesn't see it like that. Oh, number one, you know, for the league, and then someone else for the cups. He has a very clear number one in mind. I think they tried to be clever, get someone in for cheap, and use the money from Martinez to do something else. I suppose that's just what we have to do right now to make things happen in the transfer market. It is a worry, though. You do worry if Bernd Leno goes down injured or, God forbid, picks up the virus. What are we going to do for a period of time with Renarsson in goal? It is a concern, and he's nowhere near as good as some of the other second choice goalkeepers we've had over the years.
Yeah. سقيت هاري قلت لي دابا تشوف بلي لازمنا نجيبوا يعني النادي لازم يجيب حارس مرمى واحد اخر لانه رونالسون كي شفناه يعني الحاله ما تعجبش كما نقولوا كاكش ما يصرى لينو ولا لينو كما قال لك هو تكون عنده اصابه ولا يكون عنده يعني اصابه كما غنشوف بعض اللاعبين بالكوفيد يعني حتكون عندنا مشكل لانه رونالسون ماشي المستوى كامل اللي عنده ويعني ارتيتا تاكل عليه بزاف يعني حتى شفنا قال لك ارسنال فينغر كان اذا شفيتو كان يلعب يعني حارسين واحد يعني الكاس وواحد كيش يقولوا البطوله بريمير ليغ ولكن في هذا الاخر لانه هو يلعب كاع لي ماتش واذا يعني دات بليصه لينو راح يكون مشكل اذا كان فيه اصابه لينو راح يكون مشكل. هذه هي كما نقولوا باختصار. I want to talk a little bit about the performances in the season so far. Well, we had a really bad run, and luckily we kind of Arteta turned it around. Do you think he's really turning things around right now, Arteta?
I'd like to think so, but it's still early, isn't it? You know, it's 3 games. 2 of those games were against teams that are in the relegation fight. I think you have to remember that as well. I'd like to think he is turning it around. I like to think the introduction of some of the younger players has given the team a bit of new life, which is what we needed. It's amazing what a bit of confidence can do, because you've seen it so many times throughout the years in football that when a team are really lacking in confidence, everything goes against them. One moment, one spark can completely change that. So I feel like Arsenal are on a better path now. Fingers crossed they can maintain it. But I think at the start of this season, those who felt we were going to finish in the top 4 were always being unrealistic. I never thought that Arsenal would finish in the top 4 this season. My only ambition was for Arsenal to be closer to the top 4 than they were last year. And I think that's all we can look for at the moment is progress. And obviously we've lost 8 games in the league this year, which is a big problem. But 4 of those games were away at Tottenham, away at Manchester City, away at Liverpool. And obviously we won against Manchester United. So, you know, there were a lot of games in there, difficult games. We've been away to all of those big sides so far. Only Chelsea have come to us. We've been to all the others. So I think you have to take that into account and hope that over the course of the season, the performances will balance out.
Yeah. And also we've been lucky because other teams are dropping points as well. So that it didn't make a big gap. When you see we are, I think, only 3 points behind Chelsea.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's crazy this year, the Premier League. كما سقسيت هاري قلت له يعني على اذا كتب لي ارتيتا يعني راهو يعني الفريق يعني راهو يرجع فيه للسكه الصحيحه. قال لي مازال شويه، قال لي لان ما تقدرش تحكم عليها 3 مقابلات فيه فريقين يعني ضعاف كما قلت انا، خاصه فريق واز برومويتش اللي كان ضعيف جدا. يعني ما نقدرش مازال نزيدو نشوفوا طريقه طويله. هذه هي غروسو مودو كما نقولوا باختصار واش شاف. وكما قلت انا ثانيك مازال تو ايرلي باش تحكم على الموسم، لانه مازال ما نساوش هذوك خسرنا 8 مقابلات يعني حاجه كريزي. ولكن هذه هي، نتمنى ان شاء الله يكملوا على هذه السكه كما قلنا. Realistically speaking, Harry, do you think we've got a chance to grab a top 4 spot? Realistically, what do you think?
I don't think it's impossible, but if I had to predict whether we will or not,
mathematically it's still possible, but
mathematically it's possible.
Yeah,
but realistically, I don't see it. I think there are 4 better teams than us in the Premier League this season. I think you've got Manchester City, Liverpool, Manchester United. As much as it kills me to say, I think Tottenham will probably be more consistent than us over the course of the season. Chelsea are there or thereabouts. You've seen Everton doing really well this year. Leicester are doing really well. I just think there's too much competition this year.
Yeah. سقسيته يعني قلت له دا تشوف بلي عندنا فرصة باش نحققوا يعني أحد المراكز الربعة، قال لك يعني صعيبة يعني كيفاش يقولوا حسابيًا ماشي مستحيلة، ولكن راح تكون صعيبة بزاف لأنه فيه فرق، قال لك من بينها يعني توتنهام نكرهوا نقولوها بصح، لكن قال لك هذه هي الحقيقة. يعني هُما راهم يعني صراحة راهم ملاح هذا العام، يعني عندهم قدرة كما يقولوا. و هذه هي. I just wanted to go back what we were talking earlier about spending money. I've read something the other day and I even shared it on our Facebook page. Do you know the ESPN? I don't know if you read the article. ESPN said that we've been, I mean, Arsenal and Manchester have spent um, most of money in world football in the last 2 seasons. I think we spent 223 million. That's crazy, isn't it?
It's nuts. And when you think about the fact that we spent all of that money and we're still so far away from where we need to be, it goes back to all the problems we've been discussing earlier on. Bringing in the wrong players, overpaying for players that actually don't warrant the money that we spent on them. It's just a bad case of mismanagement throughout the football club over the course of a period of time that's put us in this position, and it stretches all the way back to Arsene Wenger's days. Unfortunately, I love Arsene. To me, he's a god, but at the end of the day, he made some mistakes at the end as well, and maybe he stayed a little bit too long.
Yeah. I think he should have left after we won the cup against Hull City, and he could have left on high. Seriously,
If I was him, I would have left after that FA Cup final win over Chelsea. Do you remember? Quite a few years later, he beat Chelsea. Nobody expected us to, because Chelsea were the champions that year. And you just thought to yourself, you've just won your third FA Cup in 4 years. Now's your time. Just walk away. And he didn't do it.
Yeah. كما قلت له الهاري، يعني حكينا على سقسيتو، يعني حكى على أرسن فانكر، قال لك يعني كان هو تانيك المشكل تاني كان في فانكر كما قلنا شحال من خطرة، لأنه علاش صراحة اللاعبين شفنا لي كونطرا اللي عطا لهم هو السبب، يعني كان فيه سبب هو تانيك. أرسن فانكر كان هو من بين الأسباب، هو يعني سي بارت اوف ذا بروبليم كما يقولوا بالإنجليزية، لأنه كما شفنا الكونطرا تاع بعض اللاعبين يعني ماشي الهبال يعني. هذه هي. There was a club statement today in regard lending money from the bank. Have you seen it, Harry? I'm just gonna
Yeah.
Can you just is it found? Is it due to the COVID? Because I didn't COVID loan. Yeah.
So basically, what the Bank of England are doing, which is obviously the central bank in the UK, what they're doing is they're giving loans to some of the big businesses, some of the big corporations that contribute to the economy. So the big football clubs, the big entertainment companies, a lot of people in that type of industry are eligible to get these loans from the Bank of England. It's £120 million that Arsenal are borrowing. But they have to pay that back by May 2021. So it's not a long-term loan. It's a short-term loan with the idea of it helping to cover some of the costs that the club have.
Is it with interest?
It is with interest, but it's with a pretty good rate of interest. It's quite a low rate, and it makes it appealing to the club. What they're doing is they're going to use that money, they say, to continue the running of the club, whilst for the time being there is no match day revenue and all the other things they're missing out on because of the pandemic. Because here in the UK, I don't know if you've been following it, Salim, but the situation with COVID has gotten much, much worse. It looked like we were coming out of it, and now actually we're in a terrible position. 1,000 people died today alone. 60,000 new cases today alone. So it is getting bad, and it looks like it's going to take a few more months for them to get the vaccine out and get people back to normal life. So this loan is Arsenal pressing the panic button and saying, we need this because we're going to struggle to keep going the way we're going.
سقسيت هاري اليوم إذا شفتو كيما كتشوفوا في درت سكرين شير، النادي يسلف دراهم من عند البنك المركزي تاع الإنجليزي، بانك اوف انجلاند. كما قال لك هو يعني هو معبزو على القفله الحمراء، يعني صح مع الكوفيد، يعني الكورونا الحاله راهي تزيد عندهم في اليوكي، يعني الوضع راهو صعيب جدا. يعني النادي كان لازم يصرف، يعني يسلف دراهم عند البنك ب كما يقولوا فوائد قليله، يعني يساعدهم. هذه هي. آم، آم، I was just thinking about the next game, Harry. What do you make of it? I mean, the Newcastle game. It's an FA Cup game.
Yep, it's the FA Cup is our competition. You don't ever want to see Arsenal lose it because it means so much to us as fans. It's given us so much joy throughout the years I've supported the club. I got to see Arsene Wenger win it 7 times alone, and then obviously Mikel Arteta picked up the 8th. So I've seen plenty of those FA Cup wins for Arsenal. So it's a competition that means a lot to me personally, but it is an opportunity, and it is an opportunity, I guess, for Mikel to give some players a little bit of a breather, give some of the fringe players some game time. Newcastle can be dangerous on their day, but they've not been very impressive this season. So you do feel like we could still get through it with a few players left out. So we'll have to see how it goes. But I'm not, I don't want to say I'm overconfident, but I'm not particularly worried about this one. I think it's a game we can get through and book our place in the 4th round.
If you were Mikel Arteta, would you play Aubameyang? Maybe, to get more confidence, maybe start scoring, because we've seen Aubameyang this season. It's another player completely different from what we've seen last season.
Yeah, I would. I'd play Aubameyang. I'd play Nicolas Pepe. I'd play a lot of the players that are struggling for confidence, because the only way you get it back is by playing your way into form. If you're not playing, nothing changes. So for me, those players need a run out. I still think with those players, we have enough firepower to win against Newcastle United. Maybe I'd chuck Dani Ceballos in there, perhaps Mohamed El Neni. There's a lot of options that Mikel can turn to. David Luiz is back. Does he come in the side? I'd probably play Runarsson in goal as well. I know we've spoken about him, but, give Bernd Leno a rest. So there's options, isn't there? Willian can come back into the side. There's options for Mikel Arteta, and I think he'll use them.
سقسيت هاري على المقابله القادمه، يعني في الافي كاب ضد نيوكاسل. قال لك يعني اللقاء أن نشوفه صراحه يعني في المتناول. طبعا كما يقولوا الافي كاب نحبوها حنايا، وكما قال لك يعني كومبيتيشن تاعنا، مسابقه ولا منافسه تاعنا الافي كاب. يعني الناس قلت قلت اذا يعني لو كنت في بلاصه ميكال ارتيتا دخلوا باميان، لانه بسبب طبعا الثقه والنقص، يعني الفعاليه في التهديف ما راهوش يسجل. قال لي علاش، قال لي نورمالمون يدخلوا اوباميان. يعني هو يشوف هكذا بيبي ثاني كويليان باش يعاودوا يرجعوا كما يقول لك، تكون عندهم مقابلات في رجلهم. Talking about Willian, I forgot to talk about Willian. What's your take on the Willian transfer? I mean, from me, what was it? Is it on 150k a week for
Something
a player?
like that.
Yeah, for a player who's what, 32?
Yep.
Yeah. So we go back and talking about these super agents and thinking about their pockets more than the club's interest. What's your take on that, Harry?
At the time, before we signed him, I thought it would be a good idea. I looked at some of our wide options, and you look beyond Nicolas Pepe and beyond Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, and then you're talking about Reece Nelson, very young. You're talking about Bukayo Saka, very young. Gabriel Martinelli, who was obviously at the time injured. And you started to worry whether we had enough depth in those positions. And I thought that Willian would be coming in to be a backup, somebody that would help those young players develop, use his experience, and be part of the squad. What I didn't expect was for Willian to come in and be selected every single week like he has been. All right, lately he hasn't. He's dropped out of the team a few times, but at the beginning of the season, he was playing every single week. And I found that strange because I didn't expect that. I don't think the transfers worked out necessarily like Mikel would have hoped. I know the wages are big, but we didn't pay a transfer fee. So the risk wasn't massive on it. Maybe he's not doing it on the pitch every week, but I do think having his experience around the club isn't necessarily a bad thing. Particularly for somebody like Gabriel Martinelli, young Brazilian, settling in England. There's a veteran Brazilian who's been in the country for years, understands the league, understands your language, understands your culture, and he can almost be a bit of a father figure in helping Martinelli develop. So I think there are those elements to Willian that maybe we don't really see because we're not on the training ground. I'm not saying for sure that him and Martinelli are great friends or anything like that, but you'd imagine the presence of Willian and David Luiz and now Gabriel, that Brazilian contingent will help somebody like Martinelli feel more at home.
سقسيت على ويليان، يعني قال لك يعني ترونسفير صح الدراهم، ولكن ما ننساوش ثاني جا يعني جا باطل، يعني ما جاش يعني ما خلصوا عليه حتى حاجه، يعني جا كان فري يعني كما نقولوا، ما كانش متعاقد مع اي فريق. وحنا قال لك يعني هو كما كاع حنايا الفانس كنا نظنوا بلي راح يجيب التجربه ديالو، لانه ما ننكروش السيد ربح كلش مع تشيلسي، كنا نقولوا راح يجيب التجربه ديالو ويعاون الصغار باش يتاقلموا، فهمت كيفاش. هذاك الشيء ما حدثش، هذه هي. ولكن هو هاري راه يشوف بلي ماشي يعني ما قمروش بزاف عليه، ما قمروش بزاف فيه، لانه كما قال لك ما جابوهش يعني بترانسفير فيه، جا كان ليبر، يعني كان حر، لاعب كان حر. um, um, Harry, do you think, I know you are busy, you got something to do, we still got 5 minutes here.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I want to talk about Pepe again. Do you think players like Pepe, we all know we overpaid, right? And we can see he's not adapting. It looks like he's not happy at the club. You can see his behavior, his body language says a lot. Do you think we can get some decent money for Pepe and just sell him and get rid of him?
we won't get anything like what we paid for him. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
We won't get 70 odd million.
Can we get that half at least?
If we got half, I would take it. Honestly, just because sometimes, it's not the player's fault that we paid £72 million for him. You got to remember that.
Yeah.
You will only go for what you're valued at in the eyes of the club that are buying you, because they're paying for you. And so I feel sorry for him there. I don't think the pressure of the £72 million fee helps him. I think it's actually a problem for him, but he just doesn't look happy. He just doesn't look like he fits at Arsenal Football Club. The way he carries himself, he doesn't look like he's particularly trying at times. Maybe that's a little bit unfair, but I just feel like he's somebody who feels like he's made a mistake. And rather than trying to do something about it, he seems like this type to sit there and sulk. And I don't like that. I don't like that about Nicolas Pepe. He's come out in the French media a few times and talked about the fact that he's not playing football. And then he got put back in the team for the game against Leeds. And then he went and got himself sent off by being an absolute idiot. So I don't like things like that. I like, all players will face difficult periods in their career. He needs to just get his head down, perform, and get on with it. And, yes, the £72 million was over the top, but I'm sure he wasn't complaining at the time when they probably gave him over the top wages as well. So he needs to, he needs to earn his money. He needs to improve. And I'm not saying he needs to be a £72 million player, because in his eyes, maybe he was never that, but he needs to do more, and he needs to stop sulking and just get on with it for me.
سقسيت هاري، انا قلت له يعني لا بيبي، قلت له كاع على بالنا يا اخي بلي خلصوا عليه، يعني ماشي هذيك هي السومه ديالو. قلت له يعني انا نشوف بلي اللاعب ما راهوش فرحان في النادي، يعني حتى البادي لانجويج تاعو يبين بلي ما راهوش فرحان. يعني قلت له اسكو نقدروا يعني فيه امكانيه زعما تشوف بلي يقدروا يبيعوه. هو قال لي يعني انسى باش تبيعوا بهذيك السومه اللي جابوها، سبات تقريبا 75 مليون باوند. ولكن قال لك اذا قلت له انا واش حتى النص، قال لي يعني اذا جاب النص رانا ملاح. قال لي يعني لانه صراحه بيبي ماشي هذاك الشيء اللي يسوى، وراه يلوم عليه ثاني على بعض التصريحات في الصحافه الفرنسيه، وكان يشكي وقال لهم ما لعبش، وكما شفنا عطاو له لا شونس ديالو، دخل مع ليدز وبعد يعني خرج ببطاقه حمراء، وكان شيء يعني غير مقبول. وهذه يعني كيش يقولوا التصرف ديالو ماشي هذاك، يعني هي من الافضل اللي يروح، لانه واضح باللي انه ما عندوش، انا صراحه نظن بلي ما عندوش مستقبل في الفريق. هذه هي. Harry, 59 minutes, yeah. We're almost there. We're getting there. Just the last word for the Algerian fans and all the Arab followers.
Yeah, I mean, stay patient. There's going to be ups and downs under Mikel Arteta. Some are going to be his fault because he is a young manager. He's still learning. Some are going to be because of the players that we've already got at the club and already had at the club. What I will say is be patient. get behind him. I think that although, you know, when the fans are in the stadium, the fans can make their point in the stadium and they can make it clear when they're happy and when they're unhappy. I think now more than ever, with no fans in the stadium, these players are looking at social media. They're what I'm not going to say they're sitting and watching our YouTube channels, but they're watching social media. They're keeping an eye probably on what's going on. And I just think some of the abuse that they get from some fans when they don't play very well is not helpful. We're all going through a difficult time at the moment, as are they. And we've got to remember that they're footballers, but they're humans as well. So my last word would be stay patient with the team. You know, if in, you know, come the end of the season, we still don't feel like we're in the right direction, then you can make your points and you can make them, you know, loudly. I think making points is fine. I just think there's a respectful way of doing it. And I'm sure you guys are very respectful. It's just there are a lot of idiot Arsenal fans out there who just want to abuse people. So it's nice to be among now a community of Arsenal fans who are sensible, who believe in the club and understand that this is going to take a little bit of time. But yeah, and a big hello to everybody watching as well. It's amazing. It always pleases me because I've grown up in London. So, you know, for me, seeing an Arsenal fan next to me or, you know, on the train behind me or whatever is normal. But to see that Arsenal as a football club reaches so many people across the world, I always find that amazing. And until you do things like this, you don't realize how big this football club is right across the world. And we're lucky to have it in our city here.
Yeah. سقسيتها لك، قلت له يعني اخر كلمه للمشجعين وعشاق النادي في ارسنال. قال لك يعني بقاو صبروا لان الطريق ماهي سهله، كما قالنا المره اللي فات كيفن كامبل قال لك لازم تصبروا لانه راح تكون فيها ابس اند داونز، ماني ماشي سهله، ولكن هذه هي. لازم نصبروا ونشوفوا شنو حيكون مع النادي. قال لك انا ثاني يعني شرف ليا كنت معكم اليوم، وشرف ليه انه مشجعين يعني ماشي غير في انجلترا ولكن عبر العالم يتبعوا الارسنال. حكى ثاني على اللاعبين، قال لك يعني دوك ما كاش الجماهير داخل الملعب، اللاعبين يعني راهم يشوفوا في السوشيال ميديا يعني، وراهم يشوفوا اكثر من الوقت اللي فات لانه ما كاش جماهير ومع الكوفيد الناس كاع في الدار راهم يشوفوا السوشيال ميديا. قال لك يعني حتى ولو الفريق ما كانش مليح ولا ما لعبوش مليح ولا، قال لك الناس لازم ما تسبهمش، حنا دائما ضد هذا الشيء السبان وفهمت كيفاش، ولاو يعيبوهم ولا، لانه هما ثاني راهم كما قلت انسان وعنده عائله، وهذه هي لازم. ومن شيمه يعني واحد اللي مربي، وخاصه النادي كما ارسنال يعني نادي كلاسي، لازم نكونوا هكذايا، ما نسبوش ولا الاخر، حتى ولو كان غلط اللاعبين ولا ما نسبوهمش وما نطيحوا لهمش، وهذه هي. Harry, thank you so much for accepting the invitation. We know that you are, I know personally that because I'm following you, you are a busy man, especially in this period. I really appreciate accepting the invitation. Just so you know guys, Harry عنده يوتيوب channel اسمه The Chronicles of Arsenal وعنده 90 من، وكذلك عنده سيمبلي سيريا. الناس اللي تحب البطولة الإيطالية راه عنده channel، روحوا تبعوه كما راكم تشوفوا @HarrySymeou، راكم تلقاو كلش في البيو ديالو. Harry, thank you ever so much. We are 3 minutes in additional time. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me, mate. Really, really appreciate it.
Hope to have you on next time, yeah, when you have time, of course.
For sure, mate. For sure, anytime. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Hope to see you soon, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.